This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spec Tales, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Heidi-ho, all you spectators. Thank you very much for joining us. You are here for yet another episode of Spec Tales. I'm your normal and regular guy host, Jake, along with the exceedingly awesome co-host, Jesus.
Man, you had it right there, low-hanging fruit, your abnormal bearded co-host, and you just didn't take it, man. But you know, that's fine. I'll say it myself. The abnormally bearded, and I don't know if that's the beard is abnormal or I'm abnormal, so you guys can use it how you want.
Abby normal? Is that the one?
There you go. There you go. I'm starting to feel that right now.
Well, thanks again, everybody out there, for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us for Spec Tales, thank you very much for giving us a listen. Spec Tales is a comic book podcast that asks collectors and creators, what's your Grail tale? Each week, we explore new stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, and how they inspired new creativity.
We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
And we've got another interesting episode for you this week, everybody. As you all know, if you're regular listeners, we're kind of moving into 2023 with some kind of different approaches to the episodes. You already know that we're kind of on an every other week schedule, and that's going to ebb and flow. We may have some weeks where we have a few consecutive episodes, and we may have a few weeks where we go every other week. In this particular week, Jesus and I have no guest this week, but this is something we're going to try and do a little bit more of. Jesus and I want to get more. We want more one-on-one time with you, the listeners, and just us by ourselves. Right, Jesus?
Yeah, we want these fireside chats, if you will. But we just want to include comic stuff, but not too close to the fire because it's paper and it's expensive paper. So we just want to have some really cool comic conversations, things that are going on. So yeah, we're going to continue to have guests. We continue to do this show with us as well. And we're just going to try to figure out where it all fits in.
We're trying to find a nice balance. And it's not, honestly, it's not because we can't get guests. Jesus, we're beating guests off with sticks, trying to keep them off the show. Like we're beating them back. We're saying, hey, form a queue here, form a line, and we'll take you. It's going to take a little bit because we're trying to get ourselves right with, the balance of just you and I, and then we'll have a guest, and then just you and I, and then we'll have a guest, or whatever we're going to do. But we're going to do something, and we will have more guests in the future. And talking comics, that's important because something that actually, we got a lot of positive feedback with Newbie's episode last week. And I think obviously well-deserved, not for us, but for Newbie and the story that he told. It's just really great to hear about somebody getting their grail. And this really gets back to what we're trying to get back to a little bit when it comes to the collector's side of things. We were doing a lot of new books with new artists that were coming on the show. Nothing wrong with that. We actually really enjoyed all of those conversations. And we, of course, use those opportunities to get a hold of some of our favorite creators. For example, W. Maxwell Prince or individuals like that. But the thing is it sort of got us a little bit away from getting some of those comic book grails. Everybody has their own grail and for their own reasons, but Newbie telling that story about how he got the TOS 39. I mean, we were invested in that story for the last 2 years. So of course for us, we were really interested, but for everybody else, they were part of the early episodes where Newbie was talking about it. So they kind of got that payoff too. That's something we're trying to find more of. And speaking of Grail Tales, we're going to, I don't know, should we call it a surprise for this week's episode? I don't know if it's a good surprise. I don't know. We'll let you guys get there. No spoilers. let's get back to the guest situation, because I do want to hint just a little bit here, Jesus. We've got some guests. We do have some people lining up. We have people reaching out to us as well, some returning guests. And I think that's also the fun part, is people who were on our show before that enjoyed themselves so much that they'd like to come back. And we enjoyed having them so much, we would love to have them back. Almost all of our guests. I'm not going to say who you are, but you know who you are if we were not inviting you back.
Not only that, but they want to come back for pretty awesome and gnarly reasons, right? Like, there's some stuff cooking in the back room. You don't know what's mom's cooking. You always like, what is she cooking back there? I don't know.
What is she always doing?
But there's some stuff cooking in the background, and we are just excited to be, a little part of that, and that they reached out to us going forward with that, and multiple past guests. So we're really excited about it. It's just a little transition time right now, right? Like a little transition time between now and then. And man, it's so hard not to, you know me, man. I love having stuff first. I just want to blurt it out and say it, but I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it.
I'm glad you're not. But we'll see if we make it to the end of this episode without you blurting it out. In other news, we want to update everybody here. For all you out there who reside in the state of Texas, or maybe in the city of Houston, or maybe you just are willing to travel to that said state for a comic book convention. Jesus, what do you got cooking down there in Texas besides the barbecue?
Yeah, we always got barbecue on. You can smell it right now. But we, in some capacity, myself for sure, will be setting up, posting up at a smaller comic convention here in the Houston area. It's called the Pop Culture Power Show, and it is from March 31st, Friday, March 31st through Sunday, April 2nd. So I'll be posted up there. I know you guys have heard about that collection that I bought. I've bought a few collections. I just have a lot of books that I need to sell, get into the hands of some of these collectors. Really, really cool books. So I'll be there selling some wares, some books, some cool things at the booth. But we won't give it all away right now, will we, Jake?
No, we can't give it all away, Jesus. All of the information is what I'm referring to. We can't give it all away, at least not at this point, right?
That's correct. So there'll be more information going forward as we release some more episodes. But yeah, if you guys want to come check it out, come check out the show, come talk to me about your Grails or Spec Tales, or just to chop it up about comic books, man. I'm going to be there all 3 days enjoying the convention life. And it's the first time I get to go to one as a dealer, as a vendor. So pretty excited.
And if you don't mind me asking, are you going to be selling some of that collection that you got, that you talked about a few weeks back?
Yeah, I'm going to be selling. I mean, right now, when I bought that collection, I remember saying it was about 7,500 books, but it's really closer to 11,000 books now that I'm bagging and boarding. I'm still not done bagging and boarding.
Wow.
So that actually, I don't know, it's 1/3 now of my collection. So I will be putting a lot of those books up there. It's just not a lot of stuff that I collect, but I know collectors out there who do. There's gonna be a lot of Uncanny X-Men, Newsstand, Near Mint, books that are just, I mean, some of them are small keys, some of them are not keys, are just run fillers. But just a bunch of 80s and 90s books that I'll be putting up there. So yeah, that collection will be there for sure.
Very cool. Well, I know it's been a little bit. You attended a con early on after we had started this podcast, because I recall you talking about the Bilbo Baggins dude who was selling books barefoot. I don't remember which episode that was, but the dude that was selling Grails just looking like a total hobbit with the hairy toes and everything. But otherwise, we haven't had much con talk on here, so it'll be nice after that episode to kind of get the rundown, and maybe some of the listeners are going to get out there. I know we've got Texas represents, I believe, the second largest percentage as far as state listeners go. Texas follows only California in terms of the number of people listening. So maybe we'll get some, I don't know. Maybe you might get some foot traffic and meet real humans. I don't know who they are who are listening out there in Texas, but maybe you'll meet a real human who listens to our show.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. I think that's another small grail for us as a podcast would be to meet some of our listeners out in person and, get to talk to them about it, how they, stumbled upon us, why they hate Jake, why they like me, stuff like that.
It's all about the beard, I think. It's all about the beard. I can't even grow a beard. I've got no shot at this.
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting, man. And there's I'll just leave it there. I'll release some more information about some of my goals later on in some of these other episodes.
We can get into one of the next episodes that comes up before the con. So I don't want to give away any more information about that con.
I don't like it when everybody gives away everything up front. There's just, why give away everything up front? Why? Yeah.
Why would anybody want to buy the cow if the milk is free? Is that a phrase?
That's exactly the saying, right? Sometimes they intersperse cat with cow, but it's just because it's a C word, 3 letters, so you can use either one.
Exactly. All right, Jesus. Then I think we've gotten through all of the awkward updates and information, but it's time to get to our first segment.
Recent pickups.
That's right, the recent pickup segment. And Jesus, I always enjoy when you go first because I never know what it's going to be. What do you got? I never know what you have over there. What do you have?
Well, it's been kind of sparse. Sparse is the word, right?
Well, if scarce is a word, sparse is a word.
There you go. So it's been kind of sparse lately with my purchasing habits ever since I got the collection. I've been buying a lot of books to read. I even bought some manga. Shout out to the Discord and the Patreon that's reading Kaiju number 8 right now, which I did get all those issues or those volumes, and I put them up.
I'm excited. I should have started this already, but I'm excited to read this. This is your best suggestion thus far.
I'm telling you right now. I blew through the first issue or the first volume. It's just like fun, good artwork is awesome, and it just keeps me asking, what's next? So Kaiju number 8, guys, Patreon, we have a comic book club. Sorry, I gotta drop that real quick.
Absolutely.
Because that's some of the stuff that I've been buying. But as far as like comic books, I've only bought one comic book recently. Not a huge book, and I'm gonna shout this guy out because he's purchased from me and I bought from him. So that's kind of how the community goes, right? The guy's name is TZ Toys with a Z1. TZ Toys on Instagram. Reputable seller. He's always buying collections. He's always selling like hot books, graded books, raw books. I think we talked about it earlier. He has a Hulk 181 raw high grade for $5,500 right now. So I have notifications out for him because every once in a while he'll do crazy sales, which is something I aspire to do as well, but I'm just not there yet. And in one of these crazy sales, one of the notifications came up and I saw this book, and I have this book, but I don't have the first printing of it. I've enjoyed the book. We read the book, and actually the creator of the book has been on our show, friend of the show. And I'm speaking to none other than Stray Dogs #1, the A cover, graded in a 9.8, and he was selling it for $50 shipped. So if anybody knows about shipping graded books, it's going to be around $15 for the most part. So I got that book for roughly $35 graded in a 9.8, which a lot of people consider that the case cost. That's how much it costs to grade it, basically.
Yep.
So I jumped on it. I put claim. A couple other people could put claim, backup claim, but luckily my fingers, I didn't fat finger anything, and I was the first one on there. And I got the book. So 9.8 Stray Dogs. #1 for another show, Tony Fleece, is my recent pickup. Really excited about it. We really enjoyed that story. Really enjoyed that conversation with Tony Fleece. And so that's my recent pickup. It's only one And again, I'm not buying a lot, but it's just
It's a great
to
pickup,
me.
though. I love that cover, by the way. I really do. It's got the Stranger Things vibe. That was what I had always initially thought when those first covers came out. But as always, the great covers, but the variants, especially on those books, were phenomenal.
Yeah, and it was kind of the precursor to that, right? Like that's what started all these homages during 2021, 2021. So yeah, I just didn't have it. I wasn't really looking for it. Came up, I like it. I said, okay, let's go ahead and do it. So pretty cool book, pretty neat book, if you will.
Pretty swell book, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Well, I'm with you to a certain extent, and I know I've kind of used this excuse on a couple of episodes now that I'm not really buying a lot of new books. And I think maybe one of the individuals or individuals plural that have noticed this would be my LCS, because I'm just not coming in very often anymore or at all lately. Which is, I know, devastating to a lot of people. Like, oh my God, I am still reading. I'm still getting books, some of which are online. And some of that is honestly to just keep myself from giving into temptation when it comes to buying books. Because I have a problem when you know, that it's something with the glass case, right? Like when you go in the books that are behind the glass and you're like, oh my God, can I touch that book? And then you get it and you're like in your hands and you have to buy it. So I try to avoid, and it's funny because I know I mentioned this to you when it happened, but like in the last week, my LCS, who I have talked about, I've talked to the guy who owns the shop and the guy who works regularly at the shop when I'm there. I've talked to them about the podcast in the past, but I think maybe they were trying to check to see if I had died, because they followed us on Twitter.
Oh, nice.
They followed us on Twitter, and I wonder if they were just, where's Jake been? Because it's been a while, and I'm wondering if they were like, maybe he died? I don't know. So John and Jeff, if you're listening to this, I am not dead. I love you guys, but I'm slightly avoiding you. So I apologize. I will be back, and I will be buying again, hopefully soon. Right? I've just got some financial goals that they got to come first, kind of thing. So with that said, I do have something to share for recent pickups. And that is something that's a little overdue, but there was kind of you know what? I'm just going to take the blame. It was my fault on this one. We just recently got in the mail, Jesus, and I'll have to share them with you, but we got our 2 issues of Make Believe. So
nice.
Months ago, October or November, we had a gentleman named Ryan Little on the show. And this would have been October or November of 2022 for everybody listening. It was Ryan Little who was at the time promoting a Kickstarter for the part 2 of Make Believe, which is a really, really well done. They're just 2 graphic novels. He didn't do individual books, but each book has like 70 pages in it or so. So it's like almost 150 pages worth of material. And we had signed up to support that Kickstarter. It's a great storyline. How would you describe it? It's a Jesus, I'm gonna butcher this.
It's like Dungeons and Dragons kind of meets like
video games, like VR video games.
Yeah, almost. VR. That's exactly what I'm gonna say. Virtual reality. So yeah, it's about a game and it comes to life in like almost like Pokemon Go too. I think he did.
Yeah, that's right. Well. Yeah, we had talked about that. It's like almost like Pokemon Go if it was like VR in reality with like contact lenses.
And Dungeons and Dragons.
And then Dungeons and Dragons as well. And Ryan did such an amazing job with the printing and the Kickstarter wasn't to illustrate the book or to get it. It was literally just, the Kickstarter was just to publish. Like he publishes these all by himself, super high quality. The books are really well made. Jesus, I know you can't touch them with your hands right now, but you will at some point when I decide to actually ship these to you. But we finally got him in the mail. The thing is he actually sent all of these out, I recall, in November, because there were quite a few people that had gotten them, and I had been reaching out to him, and we had been going back and forth on Twitter, and he ended up saying, "Oh, you didn't get it because you didn't fill out the survey to tell us where to ship the books." And that's on me because, like you sign up for something on Kickstarter, and then Kickstarter just starts sending you all sorts of emails for other things you might want to support. So I was just kind of ignoring some of the Kickstarter emails that were rolling into the Spec Tales inbox. Apologies to everybody. And and so I must have missed that memo that they needed our address. And so he was like, "Hey, I'm sorry you didn't get your books 2 months ago. Please give me the address and I'll send it right away." So I did, and he did. So I got the books, opened it up. They're incredible. And then he also included, and I'm acting like we're special. He might have included this to everybody who got it. I don't know. But
no, it's just to us. It's just
to us. This is a divider with his printing press logo on it, Plastic Sword Press. Great. It's a divider for long boxes.
Or short boxes.
Or short boxes. Yeah, I guess I don't want to discriminate. And it's pretty cool. So really high quality book, great printing job. And we've already read these. Ryan bestowed us the digital copies back when we interviewed him. But man, I still really like his story, like it. And it's funny because this is the stuff that he always just did on the side. I think it's incredible that this isn't even his main gig. He works as a writer for Marvel, which, pineapples are a wonderful fruit. He's not allowed to say anything else. But
that he said more than enough by his answers. But yeah, man. Yeah, so man, where to start with that? The Kickstarter stuff we think is really cool. We enjoy Kickstarters. We back a lot of Kickstarters. I think we recently backed another one, I think earlier this month, right? Or late into last month, I believe, right? Forgot what it was.
Actually, we did. And I just recently, this probably doesn't pertain to anybody else listening, but Jesus, I just forwarded you we got another action item email that we need for that project. That was the project was Bearer of Ages. By right. Devin Arscott. So yes, that was the project.
Yeah, so we backed that one. There's another one that we're probably going to be backing here shortly as well. But I feel like for us, the way we are as far as like our reading habits, we're going to go to where the stories are, where the cool comics are at, right? Like, so whether that's a Kickstarter, whether that's a independent comic book, whether it's Scout, Mad Cave, a Wave, Blue World, whoever it is that's a small independent publisher, or whether it's a magazine, right? Like a magazine that does, comic book stories or horror stories or up and coming or whatever. We're going to go to where the cool comics are at. And this just shows it too, man. Like we got this make believe in, we enjoyed the story, we backed it. And hopefully we're going to back some more stuff going forward. So, yeah, I think that's a really cool pickup. And actually, it's half a pickup. So you had half a pickup this week, and I had 1.5 because one of those technically
you're going to all right. Well, do you want book 1 or book 2?
Yes.
All right. Swell. I think it's time, Jesus. I mean, I think we're good. We're good on the recent pickup. So I think it's time for us to move into
Grail Tale.
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale.
The Grail Tale segment, which is going to be interesting this week, Jesus. Why is it going to be interesting?
It's going to be interesting because this is probably, what would you say, the second appearance of this Grail Tale? Which is, in fact, that we don't have a Grail Tale this week, right?
That is the truth of the matter, Jesus. Part of this new initiative of ours of trying to get more Jake and Jesus episodes where we do not currently have a guest or we don't have a guest. Part of what's shaking out of that is we don't always have a Grail tale. And while we have guests that we can get, and while we have potential Grail tales out there floating, we don't have approval for one. We always make sure we get approval from people to actually share these things on the show. And so we don't have approval on all of them. And so we don't have a Grail tale. And I don't mean to disappoint everybody. Everybody's like, why am I listening to the show about Grail tales if they don't have Grail tales? I get it, right? You're in your grouchy voice. That's the grouchy voice for all of our spectators, by the way.
For the tater tots.
They're getting even more mad by the minute. So we don't have a Grail tale. We do apologize, but let's make a PSA. Is it a PSA or a CTA, call to action?
Call to action. That's what we're gonna do. Do the call to action. Then I'll follow up with some thoughts on this as well.
Calling all Grail tales. Calling all Grail tales. As we said in the last episode, everybody, we have no control over these sound effects. They just happen.
There's no button pressing here. It just happens.
There's no button to press. It just happens. But in all seriousness, Grail tales. What is a Grail tale? Well, in short, if you don't know or you're not familiar, because a lot of people actually are like, oh, I don't have a good Grail tale. It's not worthy. And then, and then suddenly some guy's yelling money train and and the Grail tale is in fact amazing. So a lot of you out there might actually have a Grail tale, but it's literally just a story behind collecting a book. And that book may have some sentimental value. It may only have sentimental value exclusively because of the story behind how you got it. And that's one of the scenarios that fits. That's one of the things that we look for, right? Sometimes it's just a fun story. If you've told your LCS owner a tale of collecting a book, that's a Grail tale.
Yeah, it's probably more than likely a Grail tale. And, to piggyback on what Jake is saying, there's also like, we call them Grail fails, right? Where you chased a book and you weren't able to get it, right? Like you jumped over these hoops or you saw some red flags and you just backed off. And we've all had them. I've had multiple myself, and I think I've shared on the show. So there's some Grail fails as well that are considered Grail tales. And then also, they're not always necessarily, just one book. I think recently I tagged Jake on an Instagram post of a gentleman that mentioned that he collected, I think, Uncanny X-Men, what was it, 200 to 400 or something to that extent or something like that. And that was a run that he had been trying to put together because that was a run that his dad was trying to put together. So, that's a whole run, but that's also a Grail tale. And I'm sure that there's within that run some comic books that were harder to get or some that fell in his lap that have a story or what have you. So, yeah, I mean, the call to action that we're asking here is if you have a Grail tale, or maybe you think you don't, you can even email us those, hey, is this a Grail tale? Does this qualify?
Yeah, I love the ones that are like, hey, guys, this is not a good story for air, but here it is anyway. And then we read it and we're like, this is a great story for air. Well, let's use this. So, you know what? Here's the thing. I don't trust you guys. I don't trust you, the listeners out there. I don't think you're good enough to determine whether it's good enough for our show or not. So please submit your Grail tale and we'll be the judges.
We'll let you know. And the way you'll find out is it'll be on the air. No, oh man, I was going to say something else about that as well. I don't know. Either way, send in your Grail tales. We'd be happy to hear them. We'd be happy to get to enjoy these tales of comic book collecting out there. And then also we're going to be happy to share it. So yeah, just send them in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sorry, everybody. I know, there's a lot of you people out there, you individuals out there that are looking for your Grail tale fix, your comic book fix. And we're trying our best. So that's kind of why we're putting that out there. I do want to provide a parting gift in this section, which is not a Grail tale, but how about a developing story tale, Jesus? Can I talk a little bit about a small collection that has crept up in my neck of the woods?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. You know, we love buying collection stories. They're always really good.
Who doesn't love a good buying a collection story? So this is going to have to make do for everybody out there who, really only showed up for the Grail tale. And so I'm going to do my best here. But so something that recently came up was a friend of mine who I've known for several years. The individual does not live in Nebraska anymore, but they previously did, and their family still lives here. Unfortunately, one of their family members has passed away, and that individual was kind of a hoarder / collector. Some of the things that this individual collected were comic books, and my friend, who knows that I enjoy comic books, but this individual is not a comic book person, right? It's not exactly one of the things that they get into, but they know that I am. So they sent me a list that had been compiled by another family member of all the books that are in this collection. But the thing is like the book the list that I received was it's an odd list because they tried to make it alphabetical, and they basically tried to take like the titles exactly as they read them. So it doesn't always make sense on the list, right? Like Amazing Adventures the Beast, right? Right? That's what they have as the title of the book is Amazing Adventures the Beast, which if you guys are familiar with those books, Amazing Adventures, there are a few of them that have, that's the title, and then the Beast is like a subtitle for it. So I'm not suggesting that they're all wrong, but I don't know. I want to say there's probably like 200 to 300 books, and some of them are mistitled or mislabeled, or especially like there's a few Marvel Spotlights, not the one you're thinking of. And but they're trying to do it alphabetically anyway. So the list was not the best to judge off of, especially if you can't see the book specifically to know what's truly in it. But it's a pretty good offering anyway. And there's some interesting books. For example, Amazing Adventures the Beast 11. That is actually the first appearance of Furry Beast. And
Fur Beast, if you will.
Yeah, for Beast. and that's sort of the level of books that are in it, right? There's no major keys, at least not according to the list that I was sent. So I've never really been in a position where I'm being sent a list of books and being like, hey, what's in this? Is there anything of interest to you, kind of thing? And my friend is like, what do you sort of recommend? What do you sort of suggest? And my recommendation was, at the time, I'm not, I guess, prepared to make an offer on it. And I was like, well, there's some value here, but ultimately not looking at the books and knowing what condition they're in. And based on the age, a lot of the books are from the 70s. So not a lot. There's maybe a couple of Golden Age books, but again, nothing from what I can see on the list of super high value. So I'm looking at it going, based on your list, there are books that have value here, like the first Fur Beast. And there's a Ghost Rider #1. I think that's another one that is a higher value book of some sort, but not knowing condition. It's still, even Ghost Rider #1 is not a major Grail. Now, if it was the first appearance of Ghost Rider, Marvel Spotlight #5, some people would consider that a top tier blue chip Grail, at least from the 70s, right?
For sure. Especially with the black cover.
Exactly. But But my response to him was to go have it looked at by a comic shop or somebody like that. And I gave him my rough appraisal, and I told him, honestly, this is based on pretty low quality condition of the books you have listed under the names you have listed. So I didn't want to get into a position where I was saying this is for sure worth this much. And I told him ballpark 350 to 400, especially if they're in low condition.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, okay. Cause he doesn't have any gauge on what this stuff is worth. And that's what I thought that from a value standpoint, that's what I said, I don't know what they look like. So maybe you can get into the 500s. I don't know. And I recommended he take it. So sorry, that story has been developing over a couple weeks. And I recently found out that they had taken it into a shop and they got an offer of $750. So that tells me a couple of things. One, that tells me, Jesus, that collection is probably in better condition than I was giving it credit for. But when you can't look at something and the list wasn't jumping off the page at me, for sure it wasn't. And based on the number, two things. It's in better condition, but there's no hidden gems, right? If there was a Marvel Spotlight number 5 or a Giant Size X-Men that wasn't listed in what I got, that value would have been higher because it doesn't take much to Google these books. So people, and especially if you have a list that looks like that, somebody who is willing to go into a doc, an Excel spreadsheet and make it of every book, you probably Googled the books.
Yep.
So the thing that tells me is there's no real hidden gems, but there's some value there if the shop is willing to offer $750. So I now, and this just happened like today. So now I'm in a situation where I've been asked if I want to offer more for it, which I kind of have some personal thoughts on, like, well, it's a little unfair that I know how much the shop offered. Should I jump in? And then, you wonder, like, the shop probably doesn't care. It's not like I'm going to, like, I think, Jesus, you were the one that said it. It's not like I'm out in front of the shop stopping these people and saying, let me give you the money instead. I'm not taking it out. And in reality, I'm the one that pointed them to the shop to begin with. So all that said, I have not even decided what I'm going to do. And in this particular scenario, there is a wild card, and that is the person who actually gets to decide if and when they sell these books. That individual feels as though the number that they received from the shop is way too low. And in their research, they think that they should just grade all the comics, which, I mean, you and I both know already, but they're thinking they could get more money if they graded all the comics, because then they could get what the value is for what they're grading. And
how many books is it, man? Real quick.
It's like 300. It's and the thing is it's a lot of junk, like, not junk, right? I don't mean it's just a lot of filler books. It's a lot of filler books.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, man. And I think that's, I've been fortunate enough to buy a couple collections. I've bought small collections. I'm talking about one short box full. I bought, medium-sized collections. I'm talking about, maybe 1,000 books, 1,500 books. And then I bought big collections where we're talking about, I would say anything over 5,000 books probably is like a big collection, I guess.
Yep.
And obviously there's some huge collections, right? Like there's huge collections that are like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 books or whatever. But I've been fortunate enough to buy these collections, and I've come across that a lot, where it's, somebody else's that might have maybe passed away or they were passed down to them, and their original owner is now, either, like I mentioned, passed away, or maybe in a retirement home, or maybe they had to downsize. They don't have enough space for them. and their kids are taking care of it, or their significant other or loved one is taking care of it, and they obviously they want to maximize what they can, because this is also part maybe of their retirement, or part to help take care of them, or for burial costs, or whatever it may be, right? And for us as collectors, right, as collectors, you can obviously offer a little bit more than what a dealer can, or a LCS, because the LCS has to just look at it as the bottom line, and they're not really collecting anything. As a collector, you want to just make sure that you don't lose money, and then whatever's left over, you can hopefully keep one of the big key books there, or one of the nice key books that you want. And that's kind of how it works, and that's how the math kind of works out on it.
Yep.
But I have come across that a ton of times, where they want to grade it and they don't understand what goes into grading. They don't understand the time frames. I saw something right now recently where I got something from CBCS where they're charging more now, and it says wait time starting at 30 days, 30 business days.
Okay, that's at least shorter, right? That's than it's been in the past.
It's definitely shorter, but 30 business days, you're talking about 6 weeks, maybe more.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's still time. Yeah.
And they went up in price to $35 each slab for modern books, which I think most of those 70s books were probably 75 and newer they consider modern, I guess, for slabbing. So you're looking at $35 per book, and then waiting 6 weeks to 2 months or more to get them graded. They don't have that knowledge. They don't understand it like we do. So that's up to us. And it's hard, right? Because you obviously are biased because you want the books, you want the collection. But at the same time, you're trying to tell them in the best way possible, like, look, this is not what you think it is. It takes forever to get these things graded. That's why you're getting less, because the dealer or myself as a collector has to invest that time, money, and energy into getting it pressed and clean and shipped off, and then receive it back. So, man, I really do hope you get this collection, because I think it's a cool collection. You shared it with me, some of the books in there. And like you mentioned too, since the LCS made an offer, you can be fairly confident that if you sell these books, you're not going to lose money, and you'll probably be able to keep some of the cool books that are in the collection.
Exactly right. And that is one of the things that's weighing on me. Like, I would want to, I've never done the full on, like, all right, I'm going to bag and board, like what you've been doing with that big collection you bought. I haven't done it. I haven't done that moment where you're just like, all right, bagging and boarding 300 books, and then I'm going to list these, or I'm going to grade these, or that whole process is new to me. It would be new, and it's intriguing. So I will keep everybody posted on that. So it's not a Grail tale, everybody. Don't call it a Grail tale, but that's your daily dose of collecting news, I guess. I don't know. We'll come up with a new name for that doesn't sound terrible.
Yeah, I agree. We should come up with something like that, because I think collections are going to be on the rise in the near future for sale. And then also, which brings me real quick, I think, and I don't know, maybe we'll talk about this as well, Jake, but we did one, I think one, maybe two internet Grail tales, right? So maybe we bring that as well, where we search for the internet for some Grail tales that have been told already on a forum, whether that's CGC, CBCS, or Reddit.
Yep.
And we bring that to our listeners, so that they can also, we'll do the hard work. We'll do the searching and the finding, and then we'll tell it to you guys, so you guys don't have to do it. That's also a possibility going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to put in the work. We don't exactly want to leave you guys hanging on Grail tales every single week, the way that we're doing in this one. So, this is the last time I'm apologizing for it this week, everybody, but I apologize that we don't have a Grail tale. Now, Jesus, that means we're moving on.
Speculation.
That's right. The speculation segment. Jesus, what do you got?
We don't have a Grail tale, so I get to hit you guys with 3 speculation books. Pretty cool books, if I do say so myself, and also at least one of them we've talked about here recently. So the first book that I'm going to talk about, it's already popped, right? It went from a cover price book, maybe in some dollar bins. This might still be in some dollar bins of not sold backstock, because this book came out in 2021. Yeah, May of 2021. So I talked about it right around that time. I'm talking about The Good Asian #1.
Yep.
This book has been optioned by James Wan, and they're going to make it into a series. So I picked up that book as a recent pickup. I talked about that book. It's a Chinatown noir starring first-generation Americans to come of age under an immigration ban. So it's a pretty cool noir. I think noir's coming in right now. The Spider-Man noir is coming as well to Amazon Prime. So noir's in. So The Good Asian right now, you're seeing $15 prices online, whether that's Instagram or eBay. But I also think it's gonna pop a little bit more, especially when they announce the cast or who's been cast or when they do casting. So I see this book going up to about maybe $30, maybe $45 right there. So there's still some room for it to grow. And then that's even before it gets made. If it gets made and it becomes a hit like The Last of Us, which have you seen what The Last of Us has been doing on those comic books?
Man, I've never heard of the show. What is it?
The more that show pops, and I love that show, the more a little tear comes out for me selling that book at that ridiculous price that guy got. So The Good Asian #1, that's the first one. It still got some room. Also from a reader standpoint, it's a great story. I talked about it back then. It's a great story. Pick it up to read it. Pick up the trade if you don't want to, collect it, or you think you're not going to get any money back on it from a collecting standpoint. Just pick up the trade and check it out. So that's the first book I got for you. And the second book I got for you, or the next two books I got, are this week we got news that fan favorite. And I know I don't remember you saying that you liked his depiction of it, but fan favorite John Bernthal, right? Bernthal will be reprising his role as the Punisher in the MCU, which I enjoyed him as the Punisher both in the Daredevil series and in his own series. Some people didn't, some people did, but apparently enough did that he became the Punisher, and they're gonna reprise the role. So I have some Punisher-based spec that is on the outskirts, on the periphery. Everybody knows, obviously, ASM, 129? Iconic cover, super hot book right now. Yellow cover, an Amazing Spider-Man with him on the cover. And the classic, black suit with the skull on the chest. I mean, that book is a blue chip book. It's been a blue chip book. It's going to be expensive. So for some periphery books, this is what I have for you guys. I have the fourth appearance of the Punisher and the debut of the Punisher's battle van. I'm talking about none other than Giant Size Spider-Man #4. Also a cool cover, guys. It's yellow. It has Spider-Man on it. It also has the Punisher on it in his classic black suit with the skull on it. It actually has it on there twice. So pick that book up if you can. Giant Size Spider-Man #4. It's from April 1975. It's an oversized book. I think it's a cool book. So pick that up. I think I don't know, as more people, we talked about like with Wolverine, as more people can't afford the #1, #2, they start trickling down, and it's also a really cool cover. So that's one. And then the second one that I have for you is, here we go. You can't afford #1. You still want to read it. You still want to see what it's about, like how he was introduced. Then pick up Marvel Tales #106. Marvel Tales was the Marvel version of reprints that allowed you to read the origin if they were either out of stock or they weren't stocking them anymore, they're too expensive. It's the first reprint of Amazing Spider-Man #129, and it came out in 1979, which was 5 years after the original. And this one is a red cover. So it's basically the same cover as Amazing Spider-Man 129, but this one is, instead of being yellow, it's red. So I think that's cool as well. I love red covers too. So pick up that book as well. Marvel Tales number 106. A lot of people are getting to that book as well. Get it before it gets too hot and before we see him again in the new Punisher suit.
Too hot to handle. Absolutely.
That's right.
All
That's
right.
it. Respects today, man.
Nice. Yeah, the Good Asian was, if you weren't going to mention it, I was definitely going to, simply because I think we both really enjoyed when that series was new. I know I did. I recall picking up a couple copies of number 1 because I enjoyed it and I liked the variants. That they had a couple of really good covers.
Yep, I got the variants as well because the same thing. I was like, man, these variants are pretty cool. And actually, I remember it getting buzz back then as well. So for the story. So that should just tell you guys, as well as collectors, be readers. Be readers as well, because you can read some good stories and you can be ahead of the game.
One of the things that I do want to point out about that, and I maybe it's a longer discussion. Maybe it is not quite suitable for the speculation segment, but maybe it is a little bit. But we've talked briefly about kind of the dip in the market right now, and what some people may be calling, I'm not calling it that, but some might be calling it Marvel fatigue, right? We're seeing a little bit of some dips in some Marvel books. And not necessarily a rise in DC book sales by any means. To some extent, again, we're still dealing with, when it comes to DC, a lot of old characters whose first appearances were way too long ago to collect because they're golden age and they're thousands of dollars. But when it comes to Marvel, there is a little bit of a dip. However, with Image books or some independent books, things that are getting picked up, some Boom Studios books, you're still seeing spikes in values. The Good Asian is definitely a hot book right now. It is not impossible to get, but it might be a hot one for the future. Thinking in terms of Walking Dead or Last of Us or you name it, where books that are going to double and triple in value. Now we're talking about a $20 book that might be $60 or $80 book, but that's, quadrupling its value. If you can get it, that's a good turnaround if that's something you're interested in doing. So I would definitely be a reader and go look at what is going on outside of the big 2. Big surprise. Jake is recommending books outside of the big 2. Everybody, it's a news flash. Never happened before. That said,
they didn't see that coming, did they?
Well, if that one threw you for a loop, hold on to your hats, because my speculation book. Now, hold on a sec, everybody, earmuffs. If you don't want to hear a mild spoiler for Ant-Man, which has been out for several weeks now. I'm not going to pretend like it's this huge spoiler. And to be honest, it's not even that much of a spoiler if it just depends on how I couch the conversation. But I'm going to just call it a mild, super mild spoiler for Ant-Man. And that is that we get to see a couple of characters in a. So yeah, if you don't want to hear it, just be done with the episode, everybody. This is your last damn warning. We get to see a couple of characters in a bonus scene at the end of the movie. And the thing is, it's such a brief scene, but I have to admit immediately, like everybody talks about the fatigue for Marvel and, whether you liked or didn't like Ant-Man just for everybody listening, I really thought it was a fine movie, right? And I know that doesn't sound like a compliment, but I don't mean anything negative about it either, right? And in fact, I thought that this movie was better than Ant-Man 2, and it's somewhere between Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2, right? It's better than the second one.
1.5.
Yeah, exactly. And I did like it better than a couple of the more recent offerings. I think I overall enjoyed it more than Doctor Strange 2, although I didn't hate that movie. And I think I liked it more than Thor Love and Thunder. Although I do think maybe Thor Love and Thunder had a more emotionally well-developed ending. I liked the emotional payoff of Thor Love and Thunder. I thought it did it for me. But overall, I think Ant-Man 3 was a better movie, better action sequences, all of those things. So, with the ending of the movie, though, right, we got to see a couple of characters, which were Loki and Mobius. And the thing is like, yeah, there might be a little bit of fatigue, but as soon as those two came on the screen, Jesus, I don't know if you stayed in the theater to watch the scene at the end. I know you saw the movie, but I don't know. Did you like light up like, oh shit, I forgot we get these guys coming back? And their chemistry in 30 seconds on the screen was immediately like, yeah, I'm in for this. Like this is day of the episode dropping. I'm watching the first one. Right? Yeah,
for sure. Because, I don't know. This is a long conversation. I think we should have this on our, again, name dropping Patreon on our floppies.
Yep.
But I really and it's grown on me. The Loki series has grown on me as, the farther away we get from the original when it came out. I think that's one of the only ones that I've gone back and seen again. Not only because of how good it was, at least to me, but also like little Easter eggs and things of that nature that people were speculating on then. And, but yeah, man, like that is pretty exciting. That was pretty exciting. I was excited about it. I was like, oh man, this is coming up. This is exciting. I like these characters. You have so many questions. You start thinking, where did they leave off? Where is it going? Where's, what was the other character's name? The female Loki, the woman Loki.
Oh, you would ask me that.
Well, her, where's she at in this whole thing? What are we seeing? Are we seeing the beginning? Is this the middle of it? So yeah, so that was definitely exciting part of the, what are they called? The post-credit scenes.
Yep. Sylvie, by the way. I feel
Sylvie.
bad that I didn't remember the name. Yeah, absolutely. I think back to the show and how much I enjoyed watching it, especially the last couple of episodes. But the thing that for speculation, specifically for this segment, I just wanted to point out that after seeing that, it really actually made me think I kind of want Mobius's first appearance. Right? I kind of want just to have that book. Now, I don't necessarily, in this particular instance, I'm not sitting here saying that I want that book in a 9.8 and it needs to be pristine and in my collection. Like, I just want to own that book. And it's in part because Owen Wilson's depiction of Mobius is so good. And his relationship in that show with Loki is also truly endearing. You're just enjoying the friendship that they have. When Loki is a character that never had a friend. And that's all he needed, right? They took Loki, who was a villain in the first 2 movies he was in, and then they made him an endearing human by simply giving him a best friend. And you're like, oh shit, he just needed a Batman to go with his Superman or whatever. That's a bad analogy.
That's pretty, yeah.
But, anyway, so I am speculating on first full appearance of Mobius M. Mobius, the chairman of the TVA. And this is Fantastic Four 353. And currently, right now, the value of that book is on the downs. And I think that just, because it did go up for the first show first season of the show when it went out. But in reality, you can go and get a good barcode copy of this book, good newsstand copy for $15, $10, right? Yeah. Maybe less if you're finding it in a bin at a Comic-Con or something like that.
Yeah, which I know a guy that's going to have one at a Comic-Con soon. that they recently got in a collection. So I know a guy, but this book to me, man, is a super interesting book, and let me tell you why. You said barcode edition, right? The newsstand edition's out there.
Yep.
But the direct edition is the one that has obviously the first appearance, but it also has the first cover appearance of Mobius and Mobius, because it has him in the bottom left-hand corner where the UPC logo is, or the UPC is at normally. It has him on there instead for the direct edition. That's the first part. The second part is this book came with an insert. So the direct editions are the only ones that had the insert for Ultra Games. So you got to check them. The one with the Mobius and Mobius on the front of it, make sure that it has the Ultra Games insert. Because if not, then it's worth less. Not worthless, worth
less.
Yes.
Good to know. Look at this secret special information. You can't go to any other podcast and get this. Well, you probably can, but but you won't now because you got it here. If
correct.
You didn't already know that information. Look at that. So Fantastic Four 353. And if you want Mobius on the cover, get the direct edition.
Yeah. And it's a cool cover too. It's a really cool cover.
Perfect. Well, look at that, Jesus. Somehow with no guest and no Grail Tale, we are still at the 1 hour mark. What the hell did we do wrong?
I have no idea. Does that mean we don't have to have Grail Tales anymore?
No, I think people are revolting right now. Somebody just threw tater tots at their radio or whatever their listening device is.
Hey, don't waste good tater tots, guys.
But we thank you very much for joining us. Jesus, you got anything else? I don't think I have anything else.
JJ. That's all I got.
JJ. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's a tease. Jesus, you're going to have to, I don't know. Now it's too cryptic. Either way, everybody out there, thank you so much for listening. We will be back again in a couple of weeks or maybe sooner. I don't know. That's a tease. I don't know if it's a real tease. And I'm as confusing as ever right now. So everybody just tune out. We'll see you all in a couple of weeks.